Welcome back. You're still watching DayBreak on this 26th day of January 2026. Oh, okay, 26/1/2026. And it's time for us now to focus on what's been happening the past few days. In studio, I have Mheshimiwa Karoli Omondi, the Member of Parliament for Suba South constituency. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
And we're expecting the arrival of Geoffrey Wandeto, who is already in the building. As soon as he joins us, he'll be joining the panel. Unfortunately, I have apologies from two members of the panel. That is Aidan Kenan, who is the Member of Parliament for Eldas constituency, and Senator Veronica Maina, who is the nominated senator. They had confirmed their presence here this morning, but they have to attend to a parliamentary group meeting at State House this morning, which has, the timing has changed during the night. But all the same, the show continues as we focus on what's happening in the country. You'll see that the front page of the Daily Nation, apart from Wamboi fights equity auction over 8 billion shilling debt, there's also that story of how rogue police planned attack on Gachagua, and saying that the violent attack on former DP Gachagua during a church service in Uthaya, Nyeri County yesterday was allegedly planned in Nairobi on Friday, according to an officer who claimed to have been part of the operation. And you'll see what transpired there, and you've seen some of the images and the voices that are visible. So different statements coming in from the National Police Service, from the Interior Cabinet Secretary, from the Deputy President, Professor Kithure Kindiki, and many more reactions we'll be hearing from the panel, what they have to say about that. But also on the front page of the Standard, President, stop this. Tear gas in a church, bullets in the air, and children choking in Uthaya marked the latest attack on former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua amid a surge in such incidents since his impeachment. What unfolded at Witima SEK was not just political violence, but an assault on faith, law, and public safety. As accusations swirl around police involvement, responsibility ultimately rests with President Ruto, who must rein in the security apparatus and restore order. That's what the Daily Nation, or rather the Standard, is reporting. Now, also that story that is on page 2 of the Daily Nation about Minister of Education says about 80,000 grade 10 learners are still at home nationwide. National schools, low intake of grade 10 learners reveals gaps. 80,000 students haven't reported yet. PSB Talk says teams sent on the ground on a fact-finding mission. The directive is very clear. No learner should be excluded from school on the basis of fees or lack of uniform. That is according to the PS, and saying that national schools have absorbed the smallest share of grade 10 learners. Data from the Ministry of Education shows sub-county and county schools enrolled nearly half of the learners during the intake, exposing sharp imbalances in the first competency-based curriculum senior school transition. So you see the figures that Cluster 1 schools have taken 15% of the class, Cluster 2 24%, Cluster 3 18%, and Cluster 4 42%. And you'll see the transition by region. Central Kenya and Western Kenya leading by 97%, Eastern 91%, Rift Valley 94%, Nairobi 94%, and the Coast region 80%. That's how it's looking. Good morning, Mheshimiwa Wandeto.
Good morning, Sam.
Geoffrey Wandeto is the Member of Parliament for Tetu constituency in Nyeri County. I was just explaining to Mheshimiwa Karoli Omondi and the viewers that we have two apologies from Senator Veronica Maina.
Yes.
And Mheshimiwa Aidan Kenan. Apparently, they have to attend a parliamentary group meeting of the UDA party, which is your parent party. Why aren't you going?
Sam, I don't know that we should start with UDA, but first of all, Happy New Year. I know today is the 26th, it's the 26th, but we haven't met. You remember we are the ones we closed the show here with Veronica.
Oh, yes.
And it's sad that she's not here. But Sam, I would like to, first of all, condemn in the strongest terms possible what we saw happening in ACK Witima Church yesterday.
Yep.
And I think, Sam, that is where we should begin. And I'm not trying to direct the debate.
No, we'll get there. I just wanted to establish why you're not attending the parliamentary group meeting.
My answer is very simple.
Yeah.
I do not have an invite.
Ah, okay, you've not been invited. No. That's fine. That's what I wanted to establish. We'll get to the conversation of Witima ACK Church shortly from now. But first, I want us to touch base on what's been happening in the education sector. And I do not know whether, Mheshimiwa Karoli, you have any thoughts about this transition. Last week, I think it was on Wednesday, President Ruto directed school heads that they must admit whether children are coming with uniform or not, with school fees or not. And some school principals have been saying, we do not have resources to sustain these learners here. Some have been refusing to receive them. But the ministry and the government are adamant that they have to admit them. Your thoughts?
Thank you very much, Sam. I think the jewel of our country has been our educational system. Kenya has been highly rated for its HR capabilities. And I think that has been recognized in many, many studies as our strongest resource. The fact that we have had strong educational system, produced qualified Kenyans who have excelled in research, work, academia, and different sectors. But we seem to be now having a very serious problem with our educational system. So many things are not working right in the sector. You remember even the funding model for the universities had a lot of problems. And I think there are still some challenges there. But turning on to this issue, what you clearly see is lack of adequate preparedness for the transition. Because there are certain things that should have been done before that would have made the transition smooth and not chaotic as it is today. There are some challenges that would be expected, like the technology selection, the selection based on technology, placing boys in girls' schools and girls in boys' schools, or mismatching students. Those would be expected, but those are not the very fundamental issues. I think there are three fundamental issues with this transition. One is the retooling of teachers. This is something that should have been done before, all the way to high schools and to universities, and that has not been done. So you find most of the teachers are actually not very conversant with what they are supposed to do with the three pathways. They've not been retooled. If you talk to teachers, they'll clearly explain that to you. Yet, if the government knew they would make such a transition, they should have started by retooling the teachers.
Right.
The syllabus books, were late because of legacy debts. So even the preparedness by the teachers to roll out the programs in the schools has been quite a challenge. But then again, there are inherent challenges that will create a lot of disparities. You see, the JSS classroom, this program, is housed in primary schools. I think the late Professor Magoha had proposed that they be housed in the secondary schools, because secondary schools, most of them had laboratories. Primary schools don't. And the Presidential Working Party opted to house them in primary schools. But if you look at, let's say, my constituency of Suba South, with about 102 primary schools, and each laboratory building and equipping is about between 6.5 to 7 million. How much money would one need just to put laboratories in all those schools? It would be 600 million plus in one constituency.
You're saying per school is 7.5 million?
To do a proper laboratory is between 5.5 and 6 million. And then there are things you have to buy and put in those laboratories.
So this is just
that is a physical
putting the structure or also the reagents? The
reagents would be another 500 to 800,000. Okay. So it will be about 7 million. Yes. It will be about.
This is what the CDF-KT has been taking care of?
Yes, we've only been able to do 2 at 6 million. And even to buy the reagents, we had to do a rambe because the funds were not enough. So you can imagine a situation where vast majority of the schools will not have laboratories. And how this will disadvantage a lot of students. You saw the problem of syllabus books. Because of late payment, they were not released on time to teachers. Now, this issue of ordering teachers to admit students, whether in uniform or not, think about it. If you're a boarding school, you have bills that you have to meet as a head of school. People have to eat. There are certain workers that have to be paid, and you don't have enough resources to feed the students and to make certain provisions. That will be quite a challenge. The capitation that was released, I understand, is about, 30% or 40% something? It's not exactly 50%. Yeah, but there were legacy debts that were unpaid before the end of the last educational cycle. So if you, whichever way you look at it, for boarding schools, it's going to be quite a challenge to the head teachers to admit and keep these students fed and educated in the classroom. So there are so many challenges that I think the government should have dealt with much better. But for me, what is worrying me is the lack of clear pathway on how we want our educational system to run. We are going down. We are going down. Today in Kenya, those who get proper education are those with money who can afford private schools.
Yeah.
Where even the UNESCO teacher-to-student ratio of 1 to 15 is met, facilities are there. If you go to our public schools, some of them are horrifying. Yeah, the teachers are overstretched. You walk into a classroom, the desks are touching the writing, the wall where the board is. There's not enough attention given by the teachers to the students. And this has been our jewel. If we mess up our educational system, there's nothing left in this country. Absolutely nothing.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, you raise an important point, especially with the laboratories, and the government has consistently said that they have built 1,600 laboratories across the country. If in Suba South you've been able to put up 2, how many have you in Tetu?
Thank you, Sam. The government has not put up any laboratories in Tetu. But through the effort of Tetu and GCDF, we have been able to put up laboratories in 40 out of our 45 public primary schools. Tetu is actually one of the national leaders. And I sympathize with Mheshimiwa Karori when he says that in the whole of Suba South, only 2 schools have laboratories. We were a bit lucky. Maybe our situation was different. We had a lot of spare classrooms, so we have since converted them, joined maybe 2-3 classrooms, and we convert them into a laboratory, so maybe our costs were way lower. We were spending about 2 million shillings per laboratory, and we've been able to do at least about 40 out of the 45. So we've also been able to equip them with some basic kit. There's a basic kit, proposed by the Ministry of Education for purposes of a laboratory. So I would say, as far as laboratories is concerned in Tetu, and it's good to tell my people this.
So what does that basic kit look like?
Well, there's a basic kit. I can't quite list all the items, but it's certain instruments, certain reagents, certain chemicals, and it's recommended by the ministry. I think it costs about 100,000. At least it enables the student to get started. But obviously, to agree with my brother here, there's a lot more that we need to do for you to build a proper laboratory, install gas, water, buy all the instruments. It costs much more than what we are able to.
But your laboratories have flowing water.
Yeah, they have flowing water. Luckily in Tetu we have good access to water.
Okay.
Yeah.
But then your thoughts about this transition, because yes, every other year, especially when there was Form 1 admissions previously, you'd see challenges of joining, but this time round it's been unusual.
Yeah, and Sam, just to take you back, 2002, when Kibaki came to power, he ordered that all primary school children, all children go to primary schools, and that program, of course, had its own teething problems, but the government was able to quickly move in, expand infrastructure. When Uhuru came, he declared secondary school education free, day secondary school education free, and again we had significant gains in that. So what we are seeing happening is a serious erosion of the gains that we have made. And to echo my brother Karori, I think the only thing left working in this country, at least our only hope for future survival of this country, has been our manpower. Because as a country we do not have much in terms of our natural resources. What we have here is human resources, and what we are seeing is a government that is not taking this whole education issue seriously, issuing ultimatums of telling children to go whether they have school fees or not, whether they have school uniforms or not, is really a little irresponsible. And why do I say so, Sam? You talk to a lot of head teachers and they'll tell you capitation money for 2024, 2025 has not even been fully paid. I think for the last year, I think there's a balance of 6,000 for day secondary school learners, and I think another balance for the high school learners.
We're told that for the first time, capitation has hit the schools before the term started.
There is a balance for last year. It was in the news this week. I think it was on Boko Milemba talking about the balance, and he's a Kupet chair. Nobody else would be in more knowledge of this than him. Sam, when you tell especially a boarding student that please report whether you have uniform or not, as soon as the parent leaves the gate, that child will need 10 o'clock tea, they will need lunch, they will need dinner. Where do you expect this secondary school principal to be able to buy this food? And we are making a big mistake by forcing, this transition. The transition is something I fully support. We need to achieve 100% transition, which is something we had achieved in Uhuru times. Now with this new government, we seem to be faltering. But more importantly, Sam, is this shortage of infrastructure in our schools, just like Kalori has said. Again, very many secondary schools are not well equipped and well prepared for the pathways that we are talking about. How many secondary schools, or senior schools as we are calling them now, have well-functioning ICT labs? Many of them do not even have the science labs well-functioning. I know in my constituency some have been crying out to me, yes, we have a room, but the computers we have are archaic. We need computers. We are supposed to teach these sort of things. We have the whole situation again of teachers. How prepared are our teachers to handle these runners? So I again feel we seem to be talking and not backing up our policy directions with enough action and resources on the ground to basically be able to achieve these changes. Because it is one thing to pronounce yourself to something else. It's another thing to commit resources, to these sort of things. Again, look at textbooks. I don't know whether textbooks have hit the schools. I don't know whether they are grade 10.
There was a promise that it to happen before the end of the month.
Now, so what is going to happen to these students? These children, by the way, who have gone to, these young people who have gone to grade 10 risk the same things that we had with the students who went to grade 7 the first time. Actually, those students wasted the whole year. They were just going to class. Remember, that's the time we are struggling to employ teachers. There was nothing. And most of those learners actually got wasted. So, Sam, in conclusion, what I would like to say, it's the same children, yeah. Now, again, they risk losing another 1 year of their lives. Yeah. So how are we sacrificing 1.2 million lives in the hands of policy experiments? Because I think these are policy experiments to see whether children can learn without uniform. That's a policy experiment. It's a policy experiment to see whether learners can go to school without school fees.
I hear, before we continue, let's just listen to what the Deputy President and the Cabinet Secretary of Education said yesterday about this matter.
Wale wako na uniform waende shuleni. Wale hawana uniform waende shuleni. Wale wako na school fees waende shuleni. Wale hawana school fees waende shuleni. Hiyo mambo ingine yote tutazungumza watoto wetu wakisoma.
Mwalimu yeyote mwenye atarudisha mtoto nyumbani, huyu mtoto akifika nyumbani, mwalimu naye atoka aende nyumbani. Watatu waine hawana uniform kwamba hiyo shule hawezi endelea. Hiyo ni upuzi. Huyu mwalimu aende nyumbani.
That's the Cabinet Secretary for Education firing teachers in advance should they send learners home. So he is implementing the pronouncement of the president, this is what he said.
I am directing that no child should remain at home because they do not have school fees. Every child, wawe na school fees, wasiwe na school fees. Wawe na uniform, wasiwe na uniform. Waende shuleni tomorrow morning. Na mimi nataka chiefs, na assistant chiefs, na members of provincial administration. Every child in Kenya must report to school tomorrow because we have provided the money to teach all our children.
Mheshimiwa Karuli, there must be a problem there, because if it's, well, he calls it the provincial administration, though it's the national government administration officers, they're the ones who are mopping up children and taking them to school without any cohesive arrangement on how they are going to be sustained in school. The Cabinet Secretary is promising to fire those teachers that send children home. But for sure, like he says, schools will require resources. How can you plan better? Because there will be poor students even next year.
Yeah, I think this kind of approach is not very healthy. Because, you know, teachers also have certain responsibilities, especially in boarding schools,
Yeah.
or even day schools. There are some things we call occupational hazards and occupational responsibilities. There's a way you have a duty of care for those who are within your school, especially students. And to be ordered just to admit everybody, yeah, I think, and to be threatened with firing if you don't,
yeah,
is to expose the teachers to a lot of risks. But that said, you know, what the government should have said is, okay, we no longer require people to wear uniforms to schools, because there are schools that don't wear uniforms. There are many schools, American system, people don't wear uniforms. So if the uniform is a problem, they should have done some research and figured out what would be the implications.
But Karuli, even if
and just
the
say,
problem,
don't.
They will still need to wear clothes.
Yes, don't wear uniforms. Instead of mixing those with uniform and those without uniforms. It will look a bit, I mean, if you walk into a classroom and half have uniform and half don't, they should have just made it a policy that uniforms are no longer required. And that would save the parents a bit some money.
Yeah.
Yeah, and probably the stress that goes with it. But I think the approach of threatening teachers is not the correct one. Yeah, government should not do that, because it is not the fault of the teachers that parents can't afford fees. It's not their fault that curriculum books are late, syllabuses are late. It is not their fault that capitation is late. It's not the teacher's fault.
Right.
Yeah, those are the responsibilities of government. So those who are supposed to make sure these things happen,
yeah,
should take responsibility. By engaging, people should engage and find a solution, not threatening teachers. Yeah.
So, Mheshimiwa Wandeto,
Yes.
your thoughts, because even if you send all the capitation,
Yes.
the 22,000, it will still not be sufficient, because that capitation has its vote heads. So then, that particular question, what do we do with poverty for parents and learners that cannot afford school fees?
Yes, Sam, I think you are spot on. And what we are seeing coming from the president and his deputy and another minister for education, I think the best word is just to say those are fairly, they are political statements not backed by anything. What we would expect would be to see the president summoning CUPET, summoning the other organizations that deal with principals and whatever, and listen to them and say what really is the problem, you know? And the principals are very, very clear what they need done. Yeah, but threatening people with dire consequences, asking them that, you know, we are going to send you learners, and then, if you send the learners away, then you have to prepare to leave. I think to me that is a little bit reckless. What we are seeing with this grade 10 transition, Sam, is, I would say, almost the chickens coming home to roost from the point of view that we have been complaining consistently in this country that more and more Kenyans are sinking into poverty. Last week we were told that 22 million Kenyans earn less than 387 shillings a day. We are here saying every day how the economy is growing at 5%, how I don't know investors are doing what, and painting this glossy picture that the Kenya Kwanza regime is doing so well, that the government is doing so, that the country is moving ahead. Sam, this is the real test. This grade 10 transition has actually exposed to us the reality of the levels of poverty and desperation in this country. There is no parent with money in the bank or in their phone who can sit and refuse to have their child going to school. So this is an introspection that first of all, our people are becoming poorer and poorer. Now, what is the solution to this, as you have asked? The government must, first of all, commit more money to education, okay? Which I know they've been saying, but more in theory, because when you have capitation for the last year still not paid, and then you say you have sent some money, you are not even declaring exactly how much you sent, and you are not even saying that the money you have sent is actually the debts for last year, which means the principal is just going to use them first of all to settle the suppliers, for last year. So we do not seem to be putting enough resources into education. But more importantly is how do we grow the economy so that more and more Kenyans can be able to afford school fees for their children. Growing up in central Kenya, Sam, I'll tell you, in the 80s and the 90s, we were educated with proceeds of coffee and tea, and it was such a consistent form of income, and our parents were able to take us to school. There was no bursary that time. There was no capitation story that time. Parents were able to afford. So how do we support our farmers? How do we ensure that we organize our milk farmers, our tea farmers, our coffee farmers, our sugarcane farmers? How do we ensure that the government revives all these sectors so that Kenyans have money in their pocket? So this story about us moving forward as a country, really, like they say there's a West African proverb where they say that now the weed has grown and the chicken, something has been exposed. This is exactly what we have seen with this grade 10 transition.
Okay, I think we have to leave it at that point. When I come back, we'll talk more when it comes to matters of politics. But I just wanted to say that at the start of the year, the ministry released a statement saying that 44.2 billion shillings had been released for school capitation. That was on the 2nd of January. And the breakdown they gave was that free primary education was 3.7 billion shillings. Free junior school education was 14.4 billion shillings, and 26 billion shillings was for free day secondary education. Now, capitation ordinarily is sent to schools based on the list of admission. At that time, the grade 10 learners had not been admitted. So the question is, was this money, 26 billion shillings, also inclusive of the grade 10 learners that are expected to join these institutions? If not, then schools ideally have no resources to support this particular cohort. And so for the government to say that they must be admitted with or without school fees, it's a little concerning. Let's take a break. When I come back, we have more stories.